On April 22, 2004, in Spera, a small village in Afghanistan near the city of Khost, an Army Ranger and NFL player, Pat Tillman, met his demise at the hands of his own platoon. 2 years prior, Tillman had turned down a $3.6 million contract from the Arizona Cardinals to join the war in Afghanistan. Now, the official cause of the incident was accidental friendly fire when he was mistaken by members of his platoon for an enemy soldier. The fog of war, or the uncertainty experienced by people in military operations due to many circumstances that can cause accidents to happen, is nothing new. For as long as military operations have existed, mistakes have been made. But it is interesting to note that of all reported instances of American-friendly fire in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2016, a period of 15 years, the Pat Tillman incident is the only one that involves soldiers directly firing upon another soldier. Every other instance of American-friendly fire in Afghanistan was airstrike related. An Afghan soldier allied with the US, Saeed Farhad, also met his demise in this incident. According to the Army, Tillman's platoon had split up allegedly due to a broken Humvee. It was during this separation that one of the two groups was allegedly ambushed. Tillman's group, despite only being half a mile in front of everyone else, rode through the same canyon with no incident. It is reported that Tillman's group even attempted to signal a friendly position and maintain themselves on a slope so they will be visible to anyone in the canyon. Despite this, the other group claims they saw muzzle flashes coming from Tillman's direction, so they directed their attack to his position. Now, there are two things that struck me from the Department of Defense's findings in this part of the case. The document states that the platoon's mission that day was to achieve a certain unnamed objective by nightfall. The time restriction on the mission was stated as the reason the group decided to split up and continue the mission even after they had a vehicle breakdown. Now, not only were the two groups in visible range of each other, but the fact that they had to finish their objective by nightfall means that the incident took place in either the morning or the middle of the day. But before I could say for certain that the visibility conditions must have been excellent, I have to admit that this particular region of Afghanistan is unusual in that it doesn't receive as much sunlight as the rest of the country, and it actually receives a lot more rain and clouds. And when this incident took place, the monsoon season was approaching. Now, despite every soldier present being accounted for, it was never disclosed who had actually done the deed, allegedly due to ballistics. And speaking of ballistics, let's talk about some inconsistencies in the case. Tillman was reported to be hit 3 times by friendly fire while he was, quote, in the line of devastating enemy fire. And members of Tillman's group state that the other squad, while riding in a Humvee, attacked their position without any attempts to identify them. Tillman was even reported to be waving his hands to signal to the soldiers that he was not an enemy. Even worse, he actually identified himself over radio to the other group multiple times, saying, "Cease fire, friendly, I'm Pat Tillman." One soldier even claimed he had recently had laser eye surgery and his vision was hazy. But when his squad leader, who was reported to have 20/20 vision, was asked about his excuse, he claimed that he just had tunnel vision. And the rest of the group just state they followed the lead of the group leader during the attack without question. But the biggest inconsistency in the case that has been brushed over is the fact that even though the Army states Tillman was hit while hiding behind a rock, this will be seemingly impossible due to 2 things. For one, Tillman was reported to be hit in the head 3 times. Now, that's a hard enough task alone from distance, not to mention in the middle of such a stressful ambush that multiple members of the group suggested they couldn't see clearly. And the most damning evidence of all, the Army doctor who performed the autopsy stated that Tillman's injuries were sustained by blows from less than 30 feet away from him. For reference, 30 feet is only half a bowling lane. How trained soldiers could accidentally hit someone in the head 3 times from half a bowling alley away in a moving vehicle and claim not to be able to see clearly what's in front of them just may be the most suspicious thing I've ever heard. Tillman's unit also burned his body armor and uniform after the fact for unknown reasons, along with his notebook where he allegedly wrote anti-war material calling the US invasion of Iraq illegal. And as far as the military keeping secrets, the 3-star general who withheld the truth about Tillman's demise from his family for months told investigators approximately 70 times that he had a bad memory and could not recall those events. Army attorneys were even caught congratulating each other through emails for keeping investigators away so the Army could conduct their own internal investigation. Basically, they investigated themselves. And no Army doctor to date has ever agreed with the story the Army told about the incident, since the foul play was evident. Now, all of this makes it seem like someone in Tillman's platoon had a problem with him. But of course, from all reports, He was well loved by his comrades, but this attack was far too accurate to just be a mistake. And there's only one theory, in my opinion, that can help explain what really happened to Pat Tillman, and I call this theory the military-industrial murder. If you're American, then it's well known that in the immediate aftermath of the 2001 attack on the United States, the US government had all the public support they could ever hope for in sending troops to wherever our enemies were. And I remember being a kid in the early 2000s before everyone had the internet, and most Americans had never even heard of Afghanistan. But 88% of Americans supported military action in Afghanistan in 2001. But the thing is, war is only popular when you're winning. So every year troops remain there, public opinion soured worldwide. The invasion happened in October, and by December there had already been a friendly fire incident. And this was followed by an even worse incident of Canadian and American friendly fire just 4 months later, and this was still 2 months before Pat Tillman was even deployed. With growing opposition from the public, the US was struggling to convince the American people that they could actually win. Pat Tillman had the perfect story. An all-American athlete that gave up his career and millions of dollars to serve his country. And regardless of who's responsible for the attack, Lieutenant General Stanley McChrystal, who approved Pat Tillman to be awarded the Silver Star, the third highest decoration in the US Armed Forces, originally tried to spin the story as an enemy ambush. A brigadier general named Gary Jones told the Washington Post that senior Army commanders knew that this was a friendly fire incident within days. And Lieutenant General McChrystal was the director of the Joint Staff, one of the most senior officers in the entire Army, yet he still released an official account of the event, calling it a result of enemy fire, before retracting his statement the next day. The tribute plaque to Tillman in the National Infantry Museum even displayed the same story, enemy fire, before it too was changed. And this was almost likely to give the public a hero's ending to Tillman's story, rather than the ugly truth. But the thing is, Pat Tillman was a hero either way, but friendly fire on the man who had made headlines for giving up an NFL career to fight for his country is just devastating, and it definitely hit public opinion hard. And as for the trigger man, we would likely never know. The Army conducted its own internal investigation, and members of the squad that supposedly attacked Tillman have done interviews, with one man even stating he may have been the trigger man, but he can't be sure due to the alleged distance. If you ask me, Pat Tillman was attacked by a member of his platoon, but not the group everyone is pointing at. I find it very suspicious that not much in the way of blame has ever been heard about the group Tillman himself was positioned with. The Army Ranger in the other group stated he saw a muzzle flash and smoke coming from the direction of Tillman's group, but who would they have been firing at? No evidence of an enemy attack has ever been found. So either the Ranger did see muzzle flashes from Tillman's group and had unknowingly witnessed the crime and fired in their direction in the confusion, or anyone who did conspire against Tillman got the deed done, and those who didn't conspire were too afraid to speak up. And if this were true, then it would just be another cover-up to add to the long list of suspicious activity in the military. There are still men walking this earth that know what really happened to Pat Tillman, and that's likely a secret that will be taken to the grave.